Chris Mackowski of Emerging Civil War. On a very windy day, I'm at the Flight 93 National Memorial outside of Shanksville, Pennsylvania, where on the 11th of September 2001, Flight 93 came right along this flight path that I'm sitting on and crashed into the field behind me. And I always enjoy the opportunity to stop here and reflect and think. It's a wonderful contemplative space. The memorial, full of symbolism, full of opportunities for commemoration and memorialization. Very contemplative space. And I wanted to share it with you because I think of several ways this ties into our larger study of the Civil War and some parallels. And just wanted to take a few minutes and share some of those thoughts with you. I was just sitting up there at the end of the flight path. Now I'm down here next to the crash site. The boulder out in the field behind me there commemorates the spot where the plane actually hit the ground. I teach at a university in Western New York, and so at the time of the attacks, there were a number of people on campus who had direct ties to the terrorist attacks, people who were victims or in the Twin Towers at the time, particularly in New York. The first civilian on the ground killed was the chaplain of the New York City Fire Department, Father Michael Judge. He was a Franciscan friar with ties to St. Bonaventure University, killed when a piece of debris fell on him. But in the 20 years since, we've become removed, and it becomes history for the students who are there now. For many of us, 9/11 is one of the defining national tragedies of our lives. But I'm reminded time and time again that my own students were born after 9/11 happened. It is history to them, not lived history as it is to many of us. And so they have as much difficulty connecting with those events as they might with the Civil War because it's beyond their own lived experience. I'm also reminded of my visit to Dallas and Oklahoma a couple of summers ago, where I went to Dealey Plaza, the site of JFK's assassination. And in the museum there, they had a display that talked about attacks against America. And they had tied in the presidential assassination to events like Pearl Harbor and the Oklahoma City bombing, which I had the chance to visit the site of later that day. And of course, 9/11. And I talked about the Civil War as an act of violence against America. And we're reminded of that recently with the assault on the Capitol on January 6th of 2021. Our study of history reminds us that freedom is not free and that foes can be both foreign and domestic. Mostly, I'm reminded about the power of place and how important it is to preserve these landscapes so that we can preserve these stories. We talk about our Civil War battlefields as being hallowed ground because of the sacrifices that took place there. And certainly in many of those battlefields, the remains of some of those men who died there are certainly there. Just as here at Flight 93, the vaporized remains of the airplane passengers and the flight crew and the terrorists are intermingled at the crash site in the field behind me. By preserving these lands, we can remember those stories, we can commemorate those stories, we can learn the lessons that the past has to teach us, we can stay in physical touch with these stories that have shaped our national character and have shaped ourselves, sometimes in very deeply personal ways. At the Flight 93 Memorial near Shanksville, Pennsylvania, I'm Chris Mackowski for Emerging Civil War.